Hello and welcome at our GCP-Mindset channel. Today we have a very extraordinary topic. We speak about starting up a healthcare company, and we start with a medical device company, and I have a founder and the CEO of Skinuvita here, Jan Elsner. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, hello, Jan. Thanks for being here to speak with me about your startup company. You founded a medical device company, Skinuvita. Tell me a little bit more about the process of starting the company, what kind of challenges you have, and what kind of history you yourself have.
Yeah, that's there's so much to tell because the startup journey has so many impressions and so many challenges. Where should I start? Maybe a bit about myself. My name is Elsner. I'm 30 years old by now. I grew up in northern Germany. My professional background is in the area of business and research. Before founding Skinvita, I was working at the chair for entrepreneurship at the University of Bremen. And what we did is that we developed a lot of startup support programs. And so the whole startup area was not totally new for me, but the reason why I started this company was actually a personal one. I have a chronic skin disease called psoriasis since my early childhood, and I came across some problems other patients face, but also I was involved, and I really developed the desire to help other people with the skills I developed at the university, and that finally led to the foundation of Skinuvita, the name of our startup.
Okay, very cool. But tell me a little bit more about Skinuvita. What are they doing? Not too much in detail because we will speak about this in a separate interview. But in general, what do you want to reach with Skinuvita?
Yes, thank you for this question. What does Skinuvita do? It's all about digitalization and using digital tools to make skin therapy more accessible. There are different skin therapeutics, which we will cover in the other video. But the core focus we have is on home therapy. For instance, there's this therapy called phototherapy, which is very effective, but it comes along with a very high time effort. Patients need to drive 30 times to a dermatology center. And our mission is to make this treatment accessible from home, because people who have kids who have a full-time job or come from a rural area usually don't have this option to go 30 times to the therapy center. So we do home therapy solutions with digitalization. You can imagine it with an app where you can track your skin progress. We also have some embedded systems, so we can transfer doses information to therapy devices. So this is the technological area in which we're active.
Okay, very useful. So that means we should come as soon as possible on the market, correct?
Of course, because it will help people.
And what is the status now?
Right, yeah, the current status is that we're in the certification process, and our software is basically a medical product with the risk class 2A. This is because we have this dosage transfer to the device, and therefore we are in the same risk group as the therapy lamp. That, of course, comes along with a lot of requirements we have to fulfill for good reasons, because we want quality and we don't want anyone to be harmed, which means that our hardware components need to be tested in a test lab. For instance, that they are waterproof, shockproof, electromagnetical interference, whatever you can imagine. We do this with TÜV and are pretty much done with that. But it doesn't stop there. We need a quality management system according to ISO 13485 to ensure that our internal processes ensure that we have quality not only during product launch, but also in long term. But it doesn't stop there. We need clinical evidence. The good thing is with our therapy, it's not a new therapy, but we bring it to a new context, which is the home care environment. And for that, we need a clinical trial, and we're very happy to work with that on that with gcp-Service. We're currently preparing for the ethics committee submission, and look forward to start the study in March, maybe April, with the first patients. And then finally bring the product to the market by the end of this year. Some data protection requirements in between. It's a lot of requirements. I think we're on a good track, but it's a lot, I have to say.
Yeah, I can imagine. And as far as I understood, one part of your device is also software. It's an app. Yeah, and your team is a very young team. Yeah, you're used to work with software, with apps, and so on. How does it work with the user acceptance test? How do you do this? I mean, you can't test it in your team, I think.
Yeah, the whole thing is There's the risk of a lot of bias, especially because I'm a patient myself. There's this risk that I take too much from my own experience and think that this is generally also the case for other patients. So testing is a very central thing. Same for all designers. They have a certain idea of design, but might be good for aesthetics, but it needs to be usable. So what we do is that we have different iterations for product development. We work with sprints. Every 2 weeks, we do a new sprint with new planning and tasks. And what we do frequently is that we do usability tests. And very important is that we do these tests not only with our best friends and family, because they're biased anyways, but with people from different personas, different age groups, different contexts, also different attitude towards digitalization. And usually after each test, we have input and we tweak the product. This is not a fail when we then need to tweak, but actually the intention. So very early on, we involve the users, get learnings, improve it. Then we need new fresh testers, because the ones we already tested with, I mean, we can ask them if it's the right direction, but the first impression counts a lot. So we're constantly looking for people who can help us with that.
Yeah, but I think you also need to accept that not everybody will like it. And it's the same with home therapy. Not everybody will like it. There's also the possibility still to go to the doctor.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is the great thing about healthcare and how it should be. There should be options for every patient. And the living conditions and the personal preferences should definitely be respected in that.
Yeah.
What we plan is to fill a gap, which is there, but we are very happy for every other solution which is there and can totally recommend it. Well, based on what the dermatologist recommends, of course. But this is part how clinical research and medical offers should be.
Yeah, perfect. It sounds like a lot to do. But what is the biggest challenge for you up to now?
The biggest challenge? Probably the biggest challenge is that there are so many different single challenges. And then as a startup, you have very limited resources. We are fortunate enough to now have a team of 8, including 2 students. The capacities are very limited. As a startup, also our financial resources are limited. And there's so much to do. And if you ask any consultant in their field, of course, they will tell you, do that first, do that first, do that first. But you cannot do 5 or 6 different topics at the same time. You will not be faster. So step by step, you need to take one challenge after the other. And there's a big challenge to know what is the right roadmap. So with which topics should you start in order to achieve the next sub-goal, which you then need. For instance, if you have a funding round, you need new milestones to achieve. On the other hand, you need a product to be ready. Then you need this quality management system to ensure that the quality is there. So I think the biggest challenge is to find a logical order, not to do too much at the same time, but have a great system of step-by-step doing one topic after the other.
Yeah. And do you also feel the bureaucratic hurdles of the MDR? So the waiting time of the notified body, you are working with TÜV, for example, it's a huge notified body. Do you feel that they are more bureaucratic maybe than you wish?
Yeah, I think it's not really the fault of the notified bodies, but the system MDR, especially for startups like us, it's a very, very big challenge. I mean, it's good that we have the standardization of regulation and quality, but it is in the execution. And there I cannot really understand the situation. It is simple things like you have a finished product and then you need an audit. And as a startup, you don't have any revenue. You need to wait 1.5 years with a product ready, and basically a team which of course has hunger, needs to pay rent, they deserve a salary. And these are things which are quite a challenge. So that things are checked is not a problem, but the long waiting times, that's a real thing for us startups.
Yeah, a lot of people also see the concerns that the MDR kills innovation. Would you confirm that?
The way it is implemented, actually, yes. I know quite a lot of startups who went bankrupt along the way, who had an awesome product which would have helped people, and just because it stretched too long, they ran out of money and went bankrupt. And this is something that shouldn't happen. I mean, this is also probably not the idea of the MDR, but in the execution, I think this is really deadly for innovation. Another topic is, when you look at the notified bodies, they have their existing customers. And of course, the existing customers have a relationship and they come first. So it's very difficult.
They pay better.
They also pay better. As a startup, we cannot pay very good. So usually we're the small ones who don't have an established business relationship, and usually the ones who come last. This is another challenge. It's the system. It's not the individual players, but something needs to change there.
Yeah. Okay. I can understand your frustration, and you mentioned already a couple of times how important also money is, and that you need budget for your project and to get the product on the market. I know that you already joined a couple of competitions. You won awards. You got funding already. How does it work? Can you tell me a little bit more about your ways of getting funding?
Yeah, funding is a very important topic because that's the fuel you need for this startup taxi you're driving. There are a lot of different options, and these options are relevant for different stages of your startup development. If you're really developing a tech startup and you don't happen to have a very rich family background by chance, there's no other way than to get funding because you need people to support, and those people deserve a salary. Starting, what worked good for us, are also competitions. At competitions, it's not so much about the prize money. I mean, also for that you need to win, but the reputation, because it's very important to have some kind of reputation in the beginning, which you can use then for funding applications. When you reach a certain level where you have some awards you won, some letters of intents of potential clients, and a concept which you develop, and for this also those competitions are very good because you constantly get feedback and critique, and that helps you really to shape the business model. The next thing then, which makes sense, depends on the country, are usually scholarship programs. This is very accessible for people who come from universities. In our case, we were based at the Bremen University. We had won some first competitions, had some letter of intent, and then we wrote some funding applications. For instance, in Germany, we have this Exist Gründerstipendium. So it's a scholarship for up to 3 people who come from academia and have an innovative business idea. It's a lot of paperwork and it takes some time, but if you got it done, those 3 people have an entire year to work on this idea and to mature it, which is very important because in that early stage, usually investors are not ready to come in because what do you have when you put all your weekends and some evenings in before? You usually don't have a finished product, and it's not enough for investors to take the risk. Sometimes, some go in very early, but I think for me it makes sense first to take these public programs.
Yeah. And can I interrupt you? You pay some money of Exist.
Exist is... I hope I'm not wrong. It's 50% Bundeswirtschaftsministerium, so
from government
money.
Yeah.
And I think it's also 50% European money, European Social Fund, but I'm not quite sure because there are also other scholarship programs, usually on federal level. There definitely it's 50% European money. It's great that we have these programs. It really helps a lot.
Yeah, but honestly, when they give you for 1 year money, but you know already the development of a medical device lasts at least 3 years, then why do they spend the money? It's more or less wasting money. Yeah, when they don't give you enough.
Of course, better would be more would be better.
Yeah.
Well, it's the first initial push you can have.
Yeah.
I also have to say a lot of business ideas fail in the very early stage, so it makes some sense. Also, these programs are not specifically designed for medical startups. So if you have some kind of gaming startup idea, you can launch a lot faster. But yeah, for medical startups, especially if you're a risk class 2 or more, 3 years and very hard to make it with less than 2 million euros.
Yeah.
You cannot raise 2 million in the very beginning when your company is worth a quarter maybe of that. It's just impossible. So you need to go with different funding rounds. First thing is these public funding programs, which are good because they're equity free, so you don't give away too many shares in the beginning. And then you mature as a company. You can still apply for some public funding, but usually you need to pay everything in advance, and then you get 50% back. And that's where business angels usually come into play. Business angels are usually very experienced, often entrepreneurs who build up a company by themselves and have some expertise and some money. But the good thing about business angels is that it's not just money that comes in, but also help and expertise, door openers. That's a big support. So I can totally recommend to have a business angel in the next step. But it's very important that it works on a personal level, because if it's just the money, you haven't won that much. It really needs to work on the personal level so that they'll help you with the next steps. And with that, I mean, of course, you constantly need to develop the product. So one thing is fundraising. It takes time, but if you are only fundraising, you will not have progress. So you always need to make sure that you have progress and reach the next level. The next level then are usually larger players. There are venture capital funds which invest. Usually they have the goal of selling their shares after 7 years. So be aware if you go that path, because you have people who want to sell your company later and want to boost up the valuation. Knowing that certification takes time to boost up the valuation, it will not usually come from profit, but from making big promises and growth and scaling. It comes at a price. But there are also corporates who invest, and usually with a more strategic and long-term focus. This is what we in the end went for, and I think we did the right decision there.
Okay, I think it's already a good advice that you need to think about the future when you search for people who provide you with money. It can be a venture capital when you want to sell your company, or a business angel when you also need to get expertise into your company. But in general, what kind of advice would you give people who have an idea? And I mean, a lot of people have great ideas, but the execution is the key. Yeah, you made already your experience now for a couple of years. What would be your first advice for them?
So if you're at the very first idea stage, I think two things are important. The first thing is to validate this idea. So think of the hypothesis you have. So what needs to be the case so that this business idea works, especially in the healthcare sector, and then talk to people who can give you that information, validate it, or make some tests. This is very important because it gives you certainty, which you need because it's a very, very long path. It can be worth it, but only with the right idea. The second thing you need is a great team. It's impossible in the healthcare sector to do everything yourself. I mean, you cannot be an expert in regulatory, product development, business, marketing. It's just impossible. And there it's very important to find people whom you can trust and who have the right incentive. Of course, also the skills, complementary skills, not the same as you, but different skills, but also people who have the right motivation. And I think key here is that in the healthcare sector, you're really dealing with a topic that can help other people, and it can be very self-fulfilling doing that. And I think this is the right motivation to have as co-founder. Not so much people who read some books of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and think now they want to get rich fast and so on. Also, those had a very, very long journey behind them. But whenever I saw people like this, they didn't make it. And also in the team dynamic, it didn't work. It needs to be in the healthcare sector, from my perspective, the motivation to help other people, because even in hard times, you will then continue. And with the right people, they will support you and even help you and motivate you.
Yeah. And you just mentioned the co-founders. You didn't say co-workers, but co-founders. That means that you also from the very beginning said, we are founding the company together, not your company, but our company. Is that also a very important message for new startup?
I think it makes sense to have co-founders, especially in fields where you don't have expertise. So we are a software company. I have a business background. For me, it was very clear we need someone who has a technical expertise and who has skin in the game. And who's really invested and also has shares, especially also in that field. And there, for me, it was clear. I want a co-founder there. Same regulatory. We are actually quite a large co-founder team, which also was created by the way how we grew step by step. But everyone who became a co-founder provides a real value and is really invested, has a commitment.
And I think it's very clever because it's better to have 20% of something than 100% of nothing.
That's totally true. And especially in the beginning, it's so important that people stick to it. Nothing is worse. And I know a lot of teams where they were pushing it, and after 12 months, someone said, oh, it's too exhausting, or I want to do something else. And then suddenly everything collapsed. Those people really need to do the journey of years together with you. Another reason, but this is not the main reason, you don't have money to pay salaries. So what can you offer? You can offer shares, but be aware, 100% shares, 100% more is not to give away. So, and there will be funding rounds. So it needs to be balanced out and it needs to be fair. And especially when it comes to shares, it's not about so much the contribution which was already done after 6 months of working the project. It's about the years to come. You can make great contracts with that, with vesting clauses and so on, to ensure that everyone is committed over time. And there is no, in German we say Trittbrettfahrer, someone who works 6 months as a co-founder, then doesn't do anything and still has all the shares. That shouldn't happen.
Yeah. So you need to have a kind of investment mindset also.
Yeah. I mean, you have the idea. Basically, it's your idea. You have 100%. You give away. And a lot, or there's not so much in this stage, but in the future, those shares and percentages will be worth a lot if you do things right. So you need to think very well whom you put in.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's come to the last question. I mean, when I listen to you, I can feel the enthusiasm, the passion actually. But on the other side, I also hear how hard it is and all the bureaucratic hurdles. It's not that easy. So, but what do you expect now for the future of the medical device market and startup process in Europe especially?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting situation, especially in the European startup scene, especially when it goes in the area of healthcare. There are a lot of technical opportunities coming up, especially in the area of artificial intelligence. And there's a certain race of ideas also compared to the US, Asia. And we have a lot of potential here. We have a lot of great universities. A lot of startups are driven from the university area. We have these bureaucratic hurdles. Also, we have less options to fundraise, by far less than in the United States. I think the next years it will be very interesting what will have an overweight. Will it be the bureaucratic hurdles and we will be overtaken? I mean, the US is already advanced. Or will we actually become able to develop a certain dynamic, which we had over the last years, especially in COVID times? A lot of startups showed how quick also in the medical area we can have innovation. Not just startups, but also think of biotech and so on. We have these success stories, and I really hope that this leads to a dynamic that also the administration adapts and makes space for this. Another topic is data protection law in Germany. It's so complicated. It makes sense. And this is also, especially in the medical area, very good that we have it in Europe in contrast to the US, but it needs to be in a constructive way. And if we manage to get this done, there's a lot of potential. I mean, we have so many universities here with so many great ideas, which I see on all these pitch events. The potential is there, and we just need to exploit it.
Great. Thank you very much, Jan, for the optimistic approach. And yeah, next time we speak about your product in more detail, about phototherapy. I'm looking forward to this interview. Yeah, and I also hope that you liked our video about starting up a medical device company. If you have a great idea about a product, a medical device, or a drug, whatever, let us know. Leave your questions, your comments. See you the next time. Bye-bye.